Not all construction projects turn into masterpieces. Some crumble unfathomably, leaving behind jaw-dropping disasters that cost millions of dollars and, tragically, loss of lives. In fact, some mistakes are so massive they become legendary. From bridges that collapse before opening to skyscrapers that tilt dangerously to one side, these are not just errors. They are lessons learned the hard way. Here are 15 of the biggest construction mistakes in the world. Number 15. Leaning Tower of Pisa. Let's kick off with one of the most iconic architectural blunders in history, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. At first glance, it seems like a masterpiece of medieval architecture, until you notice the one thing no one can miss. And no, it wasn't planned that way. The story of the Leaning Tower of Pisa begins in 1173, when construction started on this freestanding bell tower. Builders progressed steadily until they hit the third floor, where something went terribly wrong. The ground beneath began to shift. The culprit was a shallow, 3-meter-deep foundation resting on soft, unstable soil. This critical mistake caused the tower to lean even before it was halfway built. Construction was halted due to a series of wars, and it wasn't until nearly 100 years later that building resumed. Ironically, these delays gave the soil time to settle, saving the structure from an immediate collapse. By 1372, when the tower was completed, its tilt had already become its defining feature. Over the centuries, the lean worsened. By the 20th century, it had reached a dangerous 5.5 degrees, causing real fears of collapse. Engineers intervened with a massive restoration effort from 1993 to 2001, using innovative methods like soil extraction and lead counterweights to stabilize the structure. These efforts reduced the tilt to 3.97 degrees, and experts now believe the tower is safe for at least another 300 years. But here's a fascinating twist. That very floor, the soft ground beneath the tower, has actually protected it from earthquakes. The shifting soil has absorbed seismic shocks from at least 4 major earthquakes, preventing the tower from suffering significant damage. So, while the lean might have been a critical mistake, it has also played a surprising role in keeping the Leaning Tower of Pisa standing. But what happens when mistakes are made much later in the process? Let's look at our next case. Number 14. Hyatt Regency Walkway Collapse. In our next story, a small change intended to impress guests quickly transformed into a deadly disaster. The Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kansas City, Missouri, was celebrated for its stunning atrium, which featured suspended walkways that seemed to float in the air. Opened in July 1980, the hotel quickly became a symbol of luxury and modern design. But on July 17, 1981, during a busy Friday night dance, the unimaginable happened. The walkways on the 2nd and 4th floors, filled with partygoers, suddenly collapsed onto the crowded lobby below. In a matter of seconds, 114 people were killed and over 200 were injured, making it the deadliest structural collapse in U.S. history at the time. So, what went wrong? The investigation revealed a critical change in the construction of the walkway support system. Originally designed to be held by single hanger rods from the ceiling, the design was altered during construction to use 2 sets of rods, one connecting the ceiling to the 4th floor walkway, and another connecting the 4th floor walkway to the 2nd floor walkway. This seemingly small change doubled the load on the connection points of the upper walkway, a load they were never designed to handle. The result was catastrophic. The connection points failed, and the walkways pancaked down onto the people below. The tragedy led to nationwide changes in engineering practices and building codes, emphasizing the responsibility of engineers to ensure the safety of their designs. That fatal change led to chaos, and as you'll see, it wasn't the last time small oversights led to disaster. Number 13. Lotus Riverside Complex. How does a building, rising high and strong, suddenly tip over like a giant domino without crumbling or breaking apart? The The Lotus Riverside complex in Shanghai was a massive residential development consisting of 11 13-story buildings that symbolized modern urban living. Completed in 2009, the project was designed to provide high-end apartments in a rapidly expanding city. The complex, developed by the Meidu Real Estate Company, quickly attracted buyers thanks to its location and impressive design. Everything seemed perfect until June 27, 2009. That morning, one of the buildings suddenly fell onto its side, completely uprooted from its foundation. No explosions, no earthquakes, just gravity and a catastrophic error. The building hadn't collapsed or crumbled. It was as if the entire structure had been lifted and gently laid on its side. This was a disaster that defied common expectations. The root cause was a shocking oversight during construction. Excavation work for an underground garage next to the building had displaced massive amounts of soil, causing the building's foundation to weaken. The heavy rains leading up to the collapse worsened the situation, as the weakened soil couldn't support the structure's weight. This disaster not only led to lawsuits and investigations, but also served as a stern warning about construction practices in rapidly growing cities. While this building fell gently, our next disaster hit like a tidal wave. Number 12. Aquadom. They called it the world's largest cylindrical aquarium, but no one expected that it would one day threaten the very life it was meant to protect. The Aquadom in Berlin was a breathtaking marvel, a massive 82-foot-tall cylinder filled with 1,500 tropical fish swimming through 1 million liters of water. Opened in 2003, the aquarium was housed inside the Radisson Blu Hotel and quickly became a tourist attraction, offering visitors an elevator ride through the center of this stunning aquatic display. With its clear acrylic walls and innovative design, the Aquadom was a symbol of modern engineering and creativity, blending architecture and nature in a way that had never been seen before. However, behind the scenes, the Aquadom had a hidden vulnerability, and in December 2022, it revealed itself. The massive tank suddenly burst, unleashing a torrent of water that flooded the hotel and surrounding streets, leaving hundreds of fish dead and causing millions in damage. This event sent shockwaves through the architectural world, as engineers scrambled to understand what went wrong in a structure that had cost millions to construct. Eventually, the collapse was traced back to a structural flaw that went undetected for years. The unique acrylic material, while visually stunning, proved susceptible to micro-fractures over time, especially given the constant pressure exerted by the water. Environmental factors like temperature fluctuations worsened these weaknesses, eventually leading to the catastrophic failure. When a tank bursts, it's a disaster. When an entire building gives way, it's pure tragedy. Number 11. Sampoong Department Store. The next story is a heartbreaking one. Hundreds of lives were lost, and the worst part, it was completely avoidable. The Sampoong Department Store in Seoul was a symbol of South Korea's rapid economic growth. Initially designed in 1987 as a 4-story office block, the plans were hastily changed mid-construction to accommodate a 5-story luxury department store. Cutting corners became part of the process. Support columns were removed to install escalators, and a large air conditioning unit weighing 45 tons was placed on the roof. In 1990, the building opened and it attracted 40,000 visitors daily. However, these rushed modifications caused severe structural weaknesses. On June 29, 1995, at 5:52 p.m., the inevitable happened. The entire south wing of the building collapsed in less than 20 seconds, killing 502 people and injuring 937. This made it the deadliest peacetime building collapse at the time. The 5th floor, burdened by the heavy air conditioning units and flawed design, gave way, triggering a catastrophic pancaking effect. The saddest part, is that cracks began appearing months before the disaster, but the management ignored all warnings. This disaster wasn't just an accident. It was the result of a mix of negligence, greed, and poor safety standards. From South Korea to New Orleans, let's see what happens when cutting corners leads to disaster. Number 10. Hard Rock Hotel Collapse. What happens when you cut corners on a multi-million-dollar project? For the Hard Rock Hotel, it meant disaster. The Hard Rock Hotel was designed as a luxurious 18-story building that would bring elegance and modernity to the bustling Canal Street. Construction began in 2018, with ambitious plans to include a rooftop bar and pool deck offering panoramic views of the city. As the project neared completion in 2019, the structure had already become a significant part of the skyline. However, disaster struck on October 12, 2019. The top floors of the unfinished building suddenly collapsed, sending concrete and steel cascading down, killing 3 workers and injuring dozens more. The streets below were showered with debris as part of the building pancaked, trapping people inside the wreckage. Rescue efforts were hampered as the structure remained dangerously unstable, leaving the city in shock. Investigations revealed a major flaw: cost-cutting design changes. The steel beams on the 16th and 17th floors had been drastically reduced in size to accommodate higher ceilings without increasing the building's overall height. These thinner beams, designed to handle far less weight than what was ultimately required, became overstressed, causing the upper floors to collapse. Experts concluded that these beams were 300% overstressed, leading to the disaster. But cutting corners isn't a new phenomenon. Our next story shows the devastating effects of negligence. Number 9. The sinking of the Vasa. Imagine building a majestic warship only for an oversight to send it to the bottom of the sea on its very first voyage. The Vasa, commissioned by King Gustavus Adolphus in 1625, was intended to be the pride of Sweden's navy. Built between 1626 and 1628, the ship stretched over 69 meters long and was adorned with ornate carvings and equipped with 64 bronze cannons, making it one of the most powerful warships of its time. The Vasa was designed to support Sweden's military ambitions during the 30 Years' War, symbolizing both the country's naval dominance and the king's vision. On August 10, 1628, the Vasa embarked on its maiden voyage from Stockholm Harbor. Hundreds of spectators gathered to watch the colossal warship set sail, its brilliant design on full display. But just 1,300 meters from shore, disaster struck. A gust of wind filled the sails, and the ship tilted dangerously. Water poured in through the open gun ports, and within minutes, the mighty Vasa sank to the bottom of the harbor. The cause of the disaster? The ship's flawed design, driven by a demand for grandeur and firepower over stability. The Vasa was top-heavy, with too much weight in its upper decks and insufficient ballast below. Although shipbuilders had tested the vessel's stability before launch, they ignored warnings about its instability. This was because they were under pressure from the king to quickly complete the ship. After more than 300 years underwater, the Vasa was salvaged in 1961, remarkably well preserved. Today, it stands in the Vasa Museum in Stockholm as a monument to one of history's most infamous construction failures. And while the Vasa rests at the bottom of the sea, our next disaster sent an entire town underwater. Number 8. Teton Dam Disaster. Behind its towering walls, a small mistake was all it took for the Teton Dam to turn into a force of destruction. Located in southeastern Idaho, this dam was constructed between 1972 and 1976 by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. Standing 305 feet tall and spanning 3,000 feet wide, it was an ambitious project designed to control flooding and provide irrigation to the surrounding areas. The dam's earthen construction, using compacted layers of soil and rock, was considered state-of-the-art at the time. However, on June 5, 1976, as the reservoir was nearing its full capacity for the first time, workers noticed small leaks in the dam. Despite their efforts to fix these leaks, they soon realized the situation was far worse than expected. By noon, a massive breach opened up, and within hours, over 250,000 acre-feet of water was released downstream, devastating the towns of Wilford, Rexburg, and Sugar City. A wall of water 15 feet high swept through the area, causing over $2 billion in damages, displacing 13,000 people and killing 11 people. So what caused this catastrophic failure? The dam was built on highly porous rock, making it prone to seepage. Additionally, construction techniques were not up to standard. Soil and rock used in the dam's core were poorly compacted, allowing water to seep through and erode the structure from the inside. Engineers had also failed to account for the rapid water level rise, which increased pressure on the dam. Water isn't always the problem sometimes. The sun itself becomes the enemy, as our next story shows. Number 7. The Walky Scorchy. Now let's talk about a building that drew eyes for its bold design, but turned into an accidental death ray. 20 Fenchurch Street, better known as the Walkie-Talkie due to its top-heavy form, was completed in 2014 at a cost of over £200 million. This commercial skyscraper in London was designed by architect Raphael Vignoli and is famous for its bulbous shape, which expands outward at the top, creating larger spaces for office rentals and a panoramic sky garden on the upper floors. However, the building quickly gained a much less flattering nickname, the Walky Scorchy. Due to its concave glass facade, the building unintentionally acted as a massive concave mirror, reflecting and focusing sunlight down onto the streets below. The intense light was so powerful that it reportedly melted parts of a Jaguar parked nearby and scorched the surfaces of nearby buildings, causing street temperatures to spike to as high as 117 degrees Celsius or 243 degrees Fahrenheit during summer. Londoners were quick to dub the structure the Skyscraper. In response, emergency measures were taken to install temporary screens, and later a permanent sunshade known as a brise soleil was added to reduce the intense glare. This skyscraper was scorching, but our next structure was twisted by nothing more than the wind itself. Number 6. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. How does a multi-million-dollar engineering masterpiece turn into a twisted wreck in just a few months? The Tacoma Narrows Bridge, completed in July 1940, was a stunning suspension bridge that spanned the Puget Sound in Washington state. Stretching 2,800 feet, it was the third longest suspension bridge in the world at the time. Nicknamed Galloping Gertie due to its tendency to sway in the wind, the bridge's slim, elegant design was meant to save costs while offering an efficient crossing. The bridge was designed by Leon Moisseiff, and it incorporated the latest advancements in suspension bridge theory. Its modern design was light and sleek, in line with the contemporary aesthetic of the time. It even earned praise for its beauty. But beneath that elegant exterior lay a critical oversight, a flaw so severe that it would soon lead to one of the most famous engineering failures in history. Just 4 months after its grand opening, on November 7, 1940, disaster struck. Winds reaching 40 miles per hour caused the bridge to twist violently, with the entire deck moving like a ribbon in the wind. Within hours, the twisting became too much for the structure, and the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsed into the cold waters of Puget Sound. The problem? A design that was too aerodynamic. The bridge lacked the proper measures to prevent such aerodynamic instability. This oversight, combined with its lightweight structure, set the stage for its destruction. Despite the catastrophic failure, the collapse has since influenced modern bridge design, making the lessons learned from Galloping Gertie essential to the safety of suspension bridges today. And while the Tacoma Narrows Bridge twisted itself into ruin, our next structure cracked under the pressure of its own facade. Before we move on, here's today's subscriber's pick. What you're looking at is the aftermath of a major construction project gone wrong. The plan was to build hundreds of homes on this site, and a giant chasm was dug to lay the foundation. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, until someone forgot to check the weather. That's right, they planned to avoid any potential rainfall by digging during the dry season. But nature had other plans. An unexpected flash flood swept through the site overnight, turning the entire area into a temporary river. With water came mud, lots of it. And as any builder knows, constructing homes on soft, muddy ground is a recipe for disaster. But with a tight deadline looming, the project couldn't afford to wait. So they launched a massive operation, sending in fleets of construction vehicles to drain the water and clear the mud. Thousands of dollars were lost due to this oversight, all because someone failed to check the forecast. Share your thoughts about this disaster in the comments section below. Number 5. The Aon Center. Our next structure was dressed in luxury, yet it couldn't handle the reality of its own city's climate. The Aon Center in Chicago, completed in 1973, was originally known as the Standard Oil Building and stood out for its sleek exterior of Italian Carrara marble. The use of marble gave the building a clean, luxurious appearance, but what made it unique also turned into a major disaster. Just 1 year after its completion, cracks began to appear in the marble facade. In some cases, entire panels, each weighing over 300 pounds, fell off the building, causing a serious safety hazard for the area below. The marble was chosen for its beauty, but the extreme temperature fluctuations in Chicago proved too much for the thin stone. The cracks were a result of the marble expanding and contracting in the hot summers and cold winters. After several attempts at temporary fixes, including adding steel straps to hold the panels in place, the solution turned out to be a complete refacing of the entire building. The original marble, prized for its beauty, was replaced with much sturdier Mount Airy granite in the early 1990s. The recladding effort cost an astonishing $80 million, more than half the original cost of the building itself. If you thought the Aon Center's problems were costly, wait until you hear what happened during the building of the Sydney Opera House. Number 4. Sydney Opera House. The Opera House in Sydney, with its iconic sail-shaped roof, became a symbol of beauty and innovation. But the journey to get there was anything but smooth. This building, completed in 1973, was initially planned to take 4 years and cost $7 million Australian dollars. Instead, the project took 14 years to finish, with a staggering final cost of over 100 million Australian dollars, nearly 1,300% over budget. Designed by Danish architect Jørn Utzon, the Opera House's innovative concept posed numerous engineering challenges, leading to repeated redesigns, particularly for its iconic concrete shells. These issues forced the use of computer modeling, a first for large-scale construction at the time, to solve structural problems. As if budget overruns weren't enough, the project also experienced significant internal conflict. Utzon resigned in 1966 following political disputes, leaving the interior design unfinished. This resulted in a number of compromises, particularly affecting the acoustics. Ironically, the venue meant to celebrate music and performance became infamous for poor sound quality. Musicians often complained they could barely hear their own instruments during performances. To fix these issues, the Opera House underwent a major renovation in recent years, costing nearly 300 million Australian dollars. These upgrades included installing new acoustic panels and adjustable sound reflectors to improve sound quality and functionality. Despite its rocky start, the Opera House remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a masterpiece of modern architecture. While the Opera House eventually triumphed, the next structure wasn't so lucky. Number 3. Seongsu Bridge Collapse. In this next one, a bridge built to connect two of Seoul's busiest areas became a tragic symbol of the problems caused by fast city growth in South Korea. On October 21, 1994, during rush hour, a 48-meter section of the Seongsu Bridge in Seoul collapsed, sending vehicles plunging into the Han River. The tragedy claimed 32 lives, most of whom were passengers on a bus that fell into the river and injured 17 others. What makes this event even more shocking is that it could have been prevented. Several reports of cracks in the bridge were made just hours before the collapse, but no immediate action was taken. Built in 1979, the Seongsu Bridge was originally designed to handle up to 80,000 vehicles daily. However, by the early 1990s, more than 160,000 vehicles crossed it each day. The collapse occurred due to a combination of poor construction practices, faulty welding, rusted pins, and a lack of maintenance. The heavy traffic, far beyond the bridge's original capacity, contributed to the structural failure. Investigations also revealed that maintenance had been nearly non-existent during the bridge's 15 years of operation. The collapse of the Seongsu Bridge highlighted the dangers of prioritizing rapid urban growth over safety. It exposed flaws in South Korea's Miracle on the Han River development, where speed and cost-cutting overshadowed long-term stability. This disaster led to significant reforms in the country's construction regulations and marked a turning point in how the government approached infrastructure projects. Unfortunately, this lesson came at a high cost. Many lives were lost. The bridge was eventually rebuilt and reopened in 1997 with improved standards. This bridge collapse was tragic, but our next disaster took many more lives. Number 2. Rana Plaza. April 24, 2013 seemed like just another bustling day at Rana Plaza, but there was something deadly lurking beneath the surface, something that would soon shatter thousands of lives. Rana Plaza, an 8-story building located in the Savar district of Dhaka, Bangladesh, housed 5 garment factories that churned out products for major Western brands like Primark, Walmart, and Benetton. Originally constructed for shops and offices, the building structure was never meant to endure the weight and vibrations of heavy industrial machinery. But factory owners saw an opportunity and converted it into a garment production facility, adding 4 illegal stories in the process without the proper permits. On April 23, 2013, cracks were noticed in the walls, and workers were evacuated. Yet despite the clear signs of danger, the factory managers, under pressure to meet production deadlines, ordered the workers to return the next day, threatening to withhold a month's wages. That decision proved fatal. At 8:57 a.m. on April 24, 2013, the building collapsed, killing 1,134 people and injuring over 2,500 others. It became one of the worst industrial disasters in history. Investigations revealed the building had been constructed on unstable, filled-in land, using substandard materials, which compromised its structural integrity. The vibrations from generators and machinery, combined with the excessive load from additional floors, ultimately caused the collapse. Despite the horrific loss of life, the disaster did lead to significant reforms. The Bangladesh Accord on Fire and Building Safety was established, resulting in safety improvements for over 2.5 million workers across 1,600 factories. While the Rana Plaza disaster shook the world, our final story left an entire community in mourning. Number 1. Champlain Towers. Our final structure for today stood as a beachfront dream, but lurking behind its walls was a flaw that no one saw coming until it was too late. Champlain Towers South, completed in 1981, was a 12-story condominium complex in Florida's Surfside neighborhood. It was constructed using steel-reinforced concrete, a material meant to ensure strength and longevity. The building, with 136 units, quickly became a desirable residence for those seeking beautiful views and coastal living. The structure stood proudly along the Atlantic Ocean, but behind its allure, a ticking time bomb was waiting. In the early hours of June 24, 2021, disaster struck. At 1:22 a.m., the building collapsed, taking less than 12 seconds to reduce large portions of the complex to rubble. The collapse killed 98 people and left many others injured. But what caused this sudden and catastrophic failure? Investigations revealed a disturbing combination of factors. Reports as early as 2018 indicated serious structural issues in the building. Water intrusion from the pool deck and persistent leaks had caused significant damage to the concrete slab beneath. The concrete had deteriorated, and the steel reinforcements were corroding. To make matters worse, the building's foundation was built on reclaimed wetlands, which contributed to subsidence. The lack of timely repairs following the 2018 warnings sealed the fate of Champlain Towers South, culminating in one of the deadliest building collapses in US history. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.